The topic of protectionism and Brexit, I would simply like to make one more statement with regards to Brexit. And whether you're in favor of it or whether you're against it, the way it is being handled these days is not good for Europe. And I say for Europe because we all, whether we believe in the European Union and whether we look at the future of the European Union, whether we are critical about it, whether we want it reformed, whether we want an ever closer union, the way it is handled is not positive. If President Juncker makes a statement saying, opening an EU event in Florence, Italy, speaking French, and this in Italy, just, for saying that, the English language will not be of longer importance, then I think this is something that we should think about. This is childish. This doesn't help us. We need to look forward and we need to resolve these issues. And whether his chief of staff, Mr. Sedlmayr from Germany, quotes last week, Brexit is not of importance to Mr. Juncker because he will only take 30 minutes per week to discuss this issue or to handle this issue, then I think we are lost. Because we all, whether you are on this side of the channel or on the other side of the channel, you have to look at this in a very positive way. And it does not help the case. So, but let's come back to the threat of protectionism and to the topic here. Who of you has Italian shoes wearing right now, or Spanish shoes, or shoes that were produced, say, in China? Who is wearing clothes from India or t-shirts from Mexico? I think we live with those goods all the time. We take trade and free trade for granted. And here is the issue. If all of a sudden those tariffs are imposed and goods become more expensive, then I think we have a problem. So has this microphone, by the way, because it's fading out all the time. Can I have the other one, maybe? Maybe it's made in China. Okay, so this should work. Okay, rise of protectionism and rise of people who are not in favor of freedom and free trade. Who made this, who said this, when goods cross borders, weapons won't? You're all students here, you should know that. When goods cross borders, weapons won't. It was a Frenchman, surprise. He was a philosopher. No bells ringing. Frédéric Bastiat. And I think this is the easiest quote and something that explains what we need. And I will quickly go through that. So if Mr. Trump is having the borders closed for European goods, for Mexican goods, for Latin American goods, he will actually make life more difficult for the US consumer. And in the long run, they will suffer. Let's quickly go through that. So, making America great again by making things more difficult for your own voters, for your own consumers, will not help. This is the free trade versus protectionism. When we had times when free trade was literally working, we grew. Look back in history, when the Greek city-states were trading, were competing with other regions in the Mediterranean. This is when Greece rose. Look at Germany, at the Hanseatic League. Look at the city-states in Italy. These were all free trade groups. They were cooperating and dividing labor. And this is what free trade is about. What you divide labor, you produce things that you can do better, you combine things, and in a globalized world, we must not think that we can live without free trade. So when did we actually all become rich? You might remember Mrs. Deidre McCloskey 2 years ago when she was speaking here in Thessaloniki as well. She explained exactly the rise of the wealth. This was when we started to exchange This guy here knows and exchanges and has made a fortune with it. And there are many other examples. So what happens if we put on tariffs? And this is the slide that we actually should tell Mr. Trump. Prices will rise, the wages will go down, it will be inefficient, we have slower progress and growth, of course, and then in the end, the long-term costs for the protected industries, they will be ruined. So why not 100% tariff wall? I don't think this will happen, and this will be positive for the US. The alternatives is actually when Mr. Trump will find out that there is a solution, and it's not the free trade agreements that are so highly discussed right now, because this is managed trade. As a libertarian, I would like to set you thinking and ask you to think about unilateral free trade. Maybe this is something that would be a solution. I don't say this is the ideal solution, but it would be a way forward. And these are things that are currently being discussed among the EU 27 because of the Brexit issue. Unilateral free trade is defined very easily. Country A talks with country B, allows open the borders, allows free trade, a free exchange of goods and labor, but asks the other country as well to do so likewise. And it's simplified, of course, but what has happened to places that are open, that are not only open for free trade, but for capital, for all those 4 freedoms that the EU actually stands for? They rose, they became wealthy. And this is what we all want to be. Estonia is a good example of what happened in Europe, in the European Union. At the beginning, they were completely open. They were the Hong Kong of Europe. And then in the end, they were forced to work with EU regulations and also put tariffs on. And this is when they kind of were reduced and were not as wealthy anymore. But again, this unilateral free trade would be an opportunity and would be a chance. Think about it. It's very simple. It allows us to wear shoes from Spain, wear beautiful blouses from Greece, Italy, I don't know. Glasses that are produced in Germany and for prices that are competitive. In the end, it helps the consumer and not the politician. It should help us as individuals to be free to choose. And I think this is what freedom is about and what free trade is about. We will only realize what we lose when we don't have it. This is true for freedom and it's true for free trade. If you can't have your iPhones and your Apples and those things any longer. And if you can't sit in comfortable seats at the university because they will not be produced in Greece. Think about it, march and fight for free trade. Thank you.